Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Ahmad Nazri Wahiduddin from Department of Banking and Risk Management, Faculty of Business, UTAR. The UTAR CEO Talk Series is jointly organized by Center for Corporate and Community Development, Innovate Center, Faculty of Business and Finance, and of course, Prudential Assurance Malaysia Berhad. I will be moderating today's webinar titled, Helping People and You Get the Most Out of Life with Prudential Values, by Mr. Lim En Siong, the Chief Executive Officer, Prudential Assurance Malaysia Berhad. I would like to introduce the background of Mr. Lim. Mr. Lim is the CEO of Prudential Assurance Malaysia Berhad since 1st July 2021. He leads Prudential Life Insurance business in Malaysia, which currently serves close to 2 million customers, and is responsible for growing Prudential's footprint in Malaysia. Mr. Lim has more than 25 years of combined experience in banking, insurance, and FMCG industries, including international senior leadership roles in the Philippines, Thailand, and Hong Kong. Prior to joining Prudential, he was the former Deputy CEO of HSBC Malaysia and Executive Director of HSBC Amanah Takaful, and involved in building its Islamic Bank and Takaful entities. Mr. Lim is a graduate of University Malaya and holds a bachelor's degree in economics. He has also completed the Financial Institution Director's Education program, whose aim is to promote good corporate governance in financial institutions. So if you have any questions after the presentation, please type into the chat box in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up during the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. We have received a few questions submitted by the participant during the registration, and I will bring them up as well. As far as the question is concerned, we wish that we can have more sharing with Mr. Lim, more focus on the leadership, career, management, and maybe about fintech, digital environment, and so on. To all staff, UTAR staff and students, kindly sign in your attendance in the link posted in the chat box. Now, without further delay, let us turn the time over to Mr. Lim. Okay, Mr. Lim, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So very good to be here. Just want to take the opportunity to thank UTAR and Doctor for inviting me for today's discussion. I don't want to call it a presentation, but probably a discussion and a sharing session with the audience. I think that as I was told, Doctor, that majority of the participants for today's call will be students and people who are getting ready to go into their career after completing their studies. So yes. I thought I've been there, so I can understand the feeling. I can understand the kind of question in their mind. So I thought today will be a good opportunity for me to share my personal experience, my personal journey, as well as what I see sitting in Prudential today. So I do think that, and I want to congratulate everybody who dialed in, because I do think that getting it right at the early stage is vital, so that we can set out in the right direction. And session like this is where we can share experience, and you can hear stories from people who have gone through it and what we have seen in in the real world, as we call it, as you think through your option and as you think through your career. Now, as far as education is concerned, we all know education is important and is a strong foundation to our future. Now, gone are the day where we say that just because you study a program, course A, therefore you definitely need to do what you study subsequently. But I think today, the world gives us option. You can be studying one thing and end up doing another. Or you can studying to be an accountant or to be a chef and end up running a business, as an example. So I think that this philosophy continue to hold true, where education and early exposure to sharing session like this is key. Yeah. Now, moving on, first of all, let me just take this opportunity to do a quick introduction on Prudential Malaysia, because I don't think I do not want to assume that everybody is familiar with Prudential Malaysia, though it's a very, very old organization in the world and in Malaysia specifically. Yeah. So moving on to the next page, if I may, I can't see the screen. The next page as in the map. Yeah, okay, I can see the screen now. So Prudential is a very old firm, as I say, in Malaysia. It was here since 1924. That's about almost a century ago. We will be celebrating our century or our 100-year-old celebration in 2 years' time. As a business in Malaysia on a combined basis, we have what we call 24,000 agents, yeah, nationwide. Agents are people who sell an insurance policy or a takafu policy. We work with two banca partners or banks partners, UOB and SCB. In other words, these two banks do distribute or sell Prudential products. And in addition to that, we also have what we call digital channel. We have an app, a very popular app, Pulse, and that's an app that you can download. If you go to Google Play Store or Apple Store, you can find it. And in that, there are communities, there are service capability, as well as a Pru shop. We call it Pru shop, as in a place where you can buy simple, straightforward products. Yeah, we have nationwide circa 1,500 employees, and we have about 32 branches nationwide, and we have 2 million customers today. Our vision is really to help people get the most out of life by making healthcare affordable and accessible, protecting their wealth and growing their assets, and empower them to save for their goals, right? We want to be the trusted partner for our customers. Now, why we say that? Because insurance is a form of financial tool that protect against possible eventuality. So it is a risk management tool in a way. And I think that it is also a financial tool and a living skill that everyone needs, right? To understand how it serves its purpose and to understand why we need them is very important, and it's applicable to everyone. This is not a product pitch, this is not a sales pitch. I think every one of us need to learn financial planning, and in that, insurance has a role. The reason why I kind of, and I'll come to the next slide, and I'll share with you shortly why I want to pick today's topic as a sharing session. Let's go to the next slide. So we are living in a very unique moment at the moment, currently, if I put it that way, right? For the last 2 years or so, The pandemic has disrupted the way we work, the way we go about doing things. Things that we take for granted in the past is no longer possible. For example, traveling, cross-border, going to office, going to school, going to uni. That's something that we took for granted in the past, right? Now, it's no longer the same, right? And we are living in what we call a hybrid world. This is unprecedented. And you hear people saying about offline, working from home, dialing from home, just like what we are doing now, instead of virtual session. In the past, we do face-to-face and physical session. And things has changed a fair bit. It's really disruptive. From a management perspective, this is really disruptive because in order for this to work, as I said earlier, if you look at this session, it's not possible without digital capability, without tools, without connectivity, without the infrastructure to support it. And imagine that in your day-to-day environment, in a business environment. So for us in Prudential, it was timely about a year and a half ago when we launched what we call Prudential values. The values that we expect each and every employee of Prudential worldwide to embrace, to internalize, and hopefully they can use it as a guide. This will help us to navigate the hybrid world, but also we believe with these 5 Prudential values, it will help us to achieve our strategic goal, right? Prudential in recent times have pivoted to focus solely on Asia and Africa, and we have big ambition across the region. So for us to be successful, we believe that every employee in Prudential should have what we call Prudential values. And I can relate to these very values, and I truly believe in it. And I thought that I'm taking this opportunity to share this value with participants of this call because I think it's truly applicable and universal to anyone. And these are the values that I believe useful for you to have as you move forward in your life. So if I go to the next next slide, and to introduce these 5 values to you, starting from my left, being ambitious, being empathetic, curious, courageous, and nimble, right? And I'll go through these 5 values and to share with you the content and what we mean by that, right? And if you look at it, we're using a human being to represent that, from the brain to the heart, right? Going on to the next slide. So let me just focus on the first value of being ambitious, right? It's about having an aspirational goal, committed to it, determined to get it, very driven and very enthusiastic to drive it, right? Push ourselves. When I say push ourselves, is set yourself certain standard. And in that, trying to achieve it and push yourself above your personal limit. Sometimes to do that, it's not about you alone. It is also about being a team player, right? Setting a clear target, bite-sized target, eventually will lead you to a bigger destination, and ready to push your boundary as well, right? In that, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable. You have to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, right? Why I say so, let me quote you a few examples. COVID, the multiple lockdown, PKP, MCO, we know there's so many versions of it, right? And it's very, very interesting if you look back in the last 2 years, every one of us, and this is not just about the corporate world, even the way we go about things, the way we, as a family, we're trying to get our grocery. At one stage, I still remember only one person per household. And we have story that the husband has to bring a list and don't even know some of the things that he or he supposed to buy. So I think that COVID has in a way disrupted everything, but it also shows that with that, how do you go about running your business? You have to reinvent yourself. We have to reinvent ourselves. We have to change the processes. We have to introduce new tools so that we are able to hit our objective, to meet our goals, right? I mentioned earlier the app called Pulse, right? We launched Pulse as another example. We launched Pulse about 3 years ago. This is part of the firm goal to digitalize the experience, the way we interact with our customer, the way we interact with our agents. Pulse is a super app, and it is supposed to be a companion to our customer. It is our bold vision to digitalize a very traditional business. Because in the past, if you think about it, insurance business is actually a service business, a service industry that you meet up with another agent or the seller face to face. What we're trying to do is to digitalize the business. And we started the journey way ahead of that. We started the journey in 2018, 2019. That's prior to COVID. And we started the journey. It was painful for the company. Why? Because it required investment and it required everybody to need to learn a new skill set. But however, we are bold enough to set that vision because we see that's the future, right? Today, the customer who go into Pulse is able to see, for example, policy detail. They can join some of the communities inside. There are communities that talk about cooking, different recipe, communities that talk about cycling, right? Cycling community. And also we have other feature in the app, for example, symptom checker, health checker, so that you can do it digitally. We even have a feature which is what we call doctor on call. You can even fix an appointment with a doctor virtually, right? Now, how does that relate to this first value of being ambitious? We set out an ambition to digitalize the business, as I said earlier, through Pulse. And this is a very bold and ambitious vision, right? And the entire company is gearing towards that. And we have to build our capability in order for us to hit that. Yeah. The second value is really about curiosity, right? Power of listening, thirst for knowledge, have an open mind so that we continue to accept new ideas, right? And I think that sometimes, you know, I'm sure you come across this value. These are not new, right? If you look at it, how the world has changed, the recent innovation, Spotify, Shopee, Instagram, these are relatively new capability, and every one of us can relate to it. I've heard story that, you know, prior to COVID, some people don't even buy anything online. But post-COVID, today, I think everybody know Lazada, everybody know Shopee, everybody know Grab, right? And these are relatively new innovation. Now, if I look back, I grew up in the era of Walkman cassettes. I don't know if you can relate to it, but it's just cassettes and Walkman when I'm sitting in the university. But today, with Spotify, I don't even need cassette. I have thousands of songs by just having a subscription per month, right? Now, personally, I'm still trying to maintain that spirit, eager to learn new things every day, right? And I hope that every now and then I continue to learn new things that excite me. And for me, that's important because with that kind of mindset, you can innovate, you can solve issue with what we call out of the box solution. That's not typical, right? And we can challenge the norm, right? So this is another important values. And we believe that for Prudential, Every employee should have this to help us create better solution, to help us overcome challenges. Yeah. Let's go to the next one, empathetic, right? Now, in doing so, be a very good people person, especially as you start out and you are getting your first job, as you're joining the working community, right? Be a great listener, recognize others' emotion, right? Have compassion, put yourself in others' shoes, look for common item and common agenda. Always remember, win-win solution, win-win approach, right? Make everyone as successful as yourself, right? Care for others and willing to support others. Be constructive as well, right? By saying so, I also mean be constructive, listening and sharing, and offer suggestion. That's different from criticizing. Sometimes in a work environment, in a community, you hear people give very good feedback and critiques. But what is even more important is to offer suggestion, way forward. Because for me, that's what empathetic is all about. If I go to the next one, the next value is about being courageous, right? Risk-taking, of course, calculated risk, being adventurous about it, embrace challenges, and have the confidence to try. And it is okay to fail. More so for the people who just started out. Why? Because that's the time you are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to experiment. You are allowed to try out things. Sometimes it is always easy to say that you should know what you want to do or trying to do something that you like. But the discovery journey itself is important, right? And I'm very, very sure many of the participants in this call can relate to that, right? The typical question your parents or your friends will ask you is what you want to become and what you want to study. That's a very common question, right? Now, to do the right thing and to excel in the things that you do need to discover that interest. You do need to have that focal point, right? Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness, but a courage to discover, a courage to try it, the courage to make mistake, right? And fail fast is what I'm saying. Fail fast, right? If you are trying something, not doing is definitely no go. By doing, you may find that that's exactly what you want, and that's great. Or you discover that that's not something you want. And after a year or two, by all means, change your direction, right? And ready to take that bold decision. Sometimes, you know, even as simple as making that direction or changing the direction is a bold move. And discover your calling in that. But more importantly is take action, act on it, right? A lot of people talk about it, but they don't act on it, right? So that differentiates you from the rest. And the last value is being nimble, right? Being flexible, being quick thinking, right? And resilient, right? So these are the very important attributes of being nimble, right? You must be ready and fit to compete at all time, right? That hunger to push yourself, the hunger to set a new standard for things that you do, that's important. That thirst to be better and better every day, right? In doing so, you must be flexible. You must have the agility to weather changes and challenges, right? And By the way, celebrate small win, celebrate smart failures. There's no bad failures. There are only smart failures. As I said earlier, it is okay to make this mistake, but make sure you learn from it and get back up again fast, right? Learning experience, in my view, is your best teacher. It is all about mindset, right? And with that, I have actually shared all the 5 values, right? Being ambitious, have curiosity, empathetic, have the courage to try out new things, and be nimble, right? There's no silver bullet in our life. You try it, willing to try it, willing to set your bar, and learn from it, right? And learn from it along the way. So as you continue to grow and reimagine the future, these are the values that you should be. You should internalize and make it yours. And after a while, it becomes second nature to you, right? We have been here for 100 years. Prudential has been here for 100 years. We believe that these are the values that's going to keep us going for another 100 years, right? And with that, I'll probably pause there, Doctor. That's the end of my slide. These are not very heavy slides. I intentionally make it very light because I think this is definitely a sharing and a discussion session, and I want to make it as such.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. That was a very interesting sharing session. And we have some questions here. So the first one I have here, one of the participants asking about the fresh graduate, what should they do to prepare themselves to get into the job market? And to add further, how it relates to the prudential value that you said, maybe they have to internalize this. So that's the question, Mr. Lim.
Okay. So let me answer that question from 2 parts. Yeah. First part is, I think what we need is really the right mindset to start with, right? Every one of us, as we approach not just your first career or first job, anything that we do in life, and that's just even me today, as I approach new things, as I look at it every year or every day, every one of us should approach it with the right mindset, to be positive about it. I said some of these things earlier, very committed and willing to put in the effort to achieve it, right? I think for me, that's the right attitude, because as you go for your interview, as you go for your session to explore, people can see whether you are somebody who is passionate, whether you are somebody who people say, wow, we'll give this person a chance, right? I think that excites the receiving end, right? And for me, so what if you are somebody who's not really from the field and you put up your hand and say, can I give it a try? I'm willing to put in the hours. And trust me, 9 or 10 times you'll get a job, you get that offer, right? So for me, first thing first is you know, it starts with you. It really starts with you, right? And you have to have that right attitude and right approach, yeah, to begin with. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is really to do with, you know, as you start up, pick the field that you want to be in, right? Hopefully, you know your option, right? The 2 or 3 options, or some people may end up they're still searching. But whatever it is, I said earlier, get on with it, right? Then do in project management, we call it post-implementation review, which is once you're part of it, after 6 months, after 12 months, decide, is that your cup of tea? And if it's not, withdraw yourself politely. But as you do that, you don't withdraw without an option, because then you should learn from it. As I say, smart failure. Why didn't you like about it? And in a very simple example, I would say, assuming that you end up in a job that's got to do with customer service or have to deal with human being, right? Or others, be it internally or externally. And after 6 months, you realize that you say, no, actually, I'm very good with number crunching. I'm very good with facts. I'm very good with reading reports, right? And that's what excites you. That's what you enjoy doing. So for me, you can say, okay, fine. After 6 months or 9 months, you may quit that job and go towards that kind of discipline that allows you, or the field that allows you to do so. And for me, that's very important, right? And that, as I said, that discovery journey is very, very important. For me, I find that's even more important than a conceptual advice to say, this is what's good for you. Doctor, have I answered the question? Have I missed out any part of the question?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lim. Further to that, what do you think about the communication skill, as insurance business is about selling something intangible? Do you think that's play a very significant role for those who wants to be successful in this industry?
Okay. So okay, before I answer that question, it's a very good question, Doctor. Before I answer that question from an insurance industry perspective, maybe I touch on communication skill, right? Communication skill is vital. It's important. It's infectious, right? If you're talking to somebody who's passionate, you're talking to somebody who is positive. And this can be, as I said, this is just communication in general, right? It can be an internal conversation. It can be communication with your professor. It can be communication with your family members. It can be communication with your friends or customers. If you're talking to somebody who's very passionate, very willing to listen, very willing to build on the conversation, it's just like going to the party, you enjoy it. And before you know it, it's 3 hours. Before you know it, it's 5 hours. And people will remember you and say, okay, that's a fun guy. Or let's hire her because I think she's so willing to listen and so willing to support the conversation. For me, communication skill is important, right? And this is not just about insurance company, right? As I said, I move around Asia quite a fair bit, and I work in 2 other big multinationals. It doesn't matter which country you are in, which nationality you are working on, which industry you're in. Ultimately, communication skill is so vital because people get to know you, people get to know what's inside your head, right? So that's one part of it. So to start with that, I want to set the context. Now, when it comes to insurance business specifically, yes, communication is important. Now, why is it important? Because at the heart of this business is about trust. So I said earlier, the vision of Prudential is to help people get the most out of life. And we want to be the trusted partner. What does it mean to be a trusted partner? I think that's a big, big, heavy statement, to be the trusted partner. It's almost like our life partners. It's almost like our spouse, right? It's like a marriage vow. Till death do us apart, right? So for me, to be a trusted partner means you need to understand as an insurance agent or as an insurance person, We need to understand our customer. We need to understand where they are, what are their needs, what are their concerns, right? Is it protecting themselves? Is it protecting their loved one? Where are they in terms of their stages of life? Now, these are very simple questions, but I don't think it's a question that we can get the answer over 5 minutes conversation. It's like, doctor, I'm meeting you for the first time today.
Yes.
But I can't walk away and say, I know you after this call, right? I'll probably need to sit down at the mamak store with you for another 2 or 3 rounds of teh tarik session before I say, I know what you like, what you don't like, and how you, what's your view about life, and what's your view about your family members, and what do you want to achieve for them and for yourself as well. And that require that kind of bonding and relationship, and over time build trust, right? And to build trust as well, somebody who's in this industry need to improve themselves and upgrade themselves in terms of the knowledge, in terms of what they know about the financial market. How do they see the market? How do they see risks? How do they see what are the challenges that's coming through in our life? So that if I'm the person, I'll be able to share with you and help you to structure and to plan for your future. And for me, that's the true companion. And once that's established, that relationship and that trust will last forever. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. Okay, what would you advise for this graduate who eventually would like to set up their own business? Maybe they want to become agent, have their own agency, or maybe other sort of business. So what, given that your experience across many industries, maybe they need a different skill set in a different kind of industry? So what would your advice would be for them?
I think starting out on your own. So maybe I'll be very specific about if you're going to start your business, just do it. Just do it. But having said so, I think that to have your own business is very different from working in a corporate world. I can relate to it because I was a banker before. I'm an insurer now, and I deal with very successful entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs were very successful who started off small, and today they have public listed company in Malaysia, and I know many of them, right? So the journey and the experience that they have gone through, very, very different from somebody who worked in a big organization or in a company, right? So I will still go back to the same advice earlier. One, if that's what you want and that's what excites you, go for it. Go for it, start. But with that, you need to remember, right? As an entrepreneur, first you're on your own, okay, or with a group of friends. So you have limited resources, you have limited experience. What keeps you going is passion. What keeps you going is effort, pure effort to push it, and perseverance, right? And in that, be very, very disciplined to pick up the learning, how to make it work. Your first 10 customer, your first 100 customer, how do you balance the book? How do you manage the cost versus the output, right? And how do you grow your business to the level that you want, right? And if I keep a good example, right? And I'm sure many of in this call will be able to relate to it because it's my observation. Today, if you go around, there are many new age coffee joint or cafe. And I was told that many of these young guys and young people who like to get some money together, or if their parents are supportive, they'll get capital from their parents, and they start off this restaurant or this joint, right? First thing first is they spend a huge amount to make their place so nice and so well designed, right? Number two is they then have, you know, very funny arrangement, or they don't think about the issue of capacity in the shop and turnover of the table, right? So they won't go through those basic discipline. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is, upfront they spend a huge sum to renovate. Next, they don't think about their business proposition, and they don't think about their capacity. Third, cost management, the number of employees, the number of the operating hours, the rental, right? And all they do is, and the product they sell can be just drink, or the quality of the food may not be there. And before you know it, 6 months later or a year later, many of them just not able to go on, right? So all I'm saying is that it is okay to start off to start your business, but do go back to that discipline, do go back to that commercial discipline, right? And how do you gain that? Talk to people who are successful in the business. And successful in the business not necessarily mean that somebody has to be the owner of a big company, right? It can be a simple entrepreneur who run a very successful F&B or food business, right? Just talk to them and say what's their experience, what do they go through. Number two is that the management discipline that we do in a big corporate is also relevant to a small business. I don't think it differentiates. The discipline to manage costs, the discipline to be efficient is the same, whether you're running a coffee shop or you're running Prudential. It's exactly the same. The scale might be different, but the discipline is the same. Imagine you're going to have 5 workers selling 100 cups of coffee. I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. And on top of that, you want to have it on the flagship location that the rental of the place has really cost you a bomb. Where's the mathematics? Where's the commercial discipline behind that? It's the same, right? So for me, yeah, so these for me are the 2 most important things as you start out. And the last point I'll make is you did allude to it, is that if you want to start up your agency, yeah, eventually, but to be a successful agency manager, first of all, you need to be a successful agent, right? To be a successful agent means you start up with nothing, right? You join the industry. Company like Prudential will train you. Company like Prudential will provide all the necessary support. You'll be able to first of all acquire the license, acquire the basic foundation very quickly. Then we will have buddy system where you have good leaders and people who are very successful to share their journey and experience with you, so that you can get a bit more insight behind it. And from there, you have to start up and start grow the business on your own, right? And over time, hopefully you'll be successful and you'll be able to recruit new agents and become what we call a team leader or unit manager, right? And if they are successful too, but remember, then that's a change in your role or the person's role from a sole contributor to a team leader or team builder, right? And that's a very different responsibility, because it's no longer about that individual. As far as that individual is concerned, you can be very successful, you can be a top performer, but you are sole contributor. And now if you want to build your own agency, you need to recruit another 5, another 10, and you need to provide the guidance, the support, as well as leadership example to the 10 new recruits. And these 10 new recruits need to replicate what the successful leader has achieved, right? And for me, that's completely a different task altogether, right? And if that person is successful in doing that, and the agency force or the team capacity will grow. And with that, over time, you'll be able to have a big agency.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. Okay, now that's about question on the digitalization. And you say that the industry has been digitalized since before PKP, before the COVID-19. So the direction of the industry, is it going to be like the commercial bank? Now the Bank Negara have given 5 digital banking. So do you think that it will go towards that direction and eventually brick and mortar setup will become redundant?
So in that, I think digitalization is here to stay. This is relevant to all industry and all business, right? I mean, I grew up in an era of, you know, a mobile phone is as big as, I don't know, it's a huge mobile phone that we carry around, to the era of SMS text. And now we're dealing with smartphone, and smartphone is basically a small computer that we carry, right? So digitalization is here to stay. In the past, as I quoted example from Shopee, I mean, My Sejahtera is a good thing, right? I mean, we can even track movement of people. And recently I saw some innovation that comes through that we can even do eye scan to tell the health status of a person from a 60-second scan. So you basically look into the camera, and after 60 seconds, you'll be able to tell the health status or condition of that person, right? So digitalization is here to stay. It's relevant. I mean, it's a hygiene factor now, right? So I think digitalization is here to stay. I think the mandate from Bank Negara and for the country is really to say, how do we use digitalization to propel the country and the society forward? In other words, to improve productivity, to increase innovation, to create what we call value-added services and offering to the greater society for the greater good. I think that's there. So Prudential is ahead of everybody. Prudential and maybe one or two are truly embracing it way ahead of all the rest from an insurance player perspective. So we started the journey, Prudential specifically started the journey in 2018. We have changed our back end, what we call back end core system. We have introduced new capability. We have also introduced an app, which is what I refer to, which is a Pulse app. So we are really, really ahead of the industry in that. I'm sure the rest are catching up, and they will have to do so as well, because this is not just from our perspective as an insurer, but the customer demand for it. Right? Today, if we ask ourselves that, do we want to go to the branch to queue up to do certain transaction, or if you want to, you know, we want to claim, we want to make a claim, or we want to make certain changes to our address or personal data, do we necessarily need to walk into the branch? Not necessary. Similarly, go to the banking world, where do you really need to walk into the branch to transfer 20,000 ringgit to somebody? You just do internet banking and get it done, right? So for me, digitalization serves its purpose. I think one of the biggest recent, in my view, one of the recent innovation that I think very useful to the society, and also to the people, to people who are looking for an employment or earn a living, is Grab, right? Grab is a true innovation that helped to improve the quality of life right? From a user perspective, today we don't have to stuck in a traffic or try to drive everywhere, right? We can use the public transport, we can use Grab, and at the same time, that innovation, if I call it that way, has also provided employment opportunity to many young people in Malaysia. The riders, the Grab drivers, the food delivery people. I mean, for me, that's great. That's, you know, we are actually creating value to the economy, right? And we're creating employment. Now, sure, people will say, can we have higher value employment and so forth? Yeah, we'll come to that. But to start with, they have proper employment, and that really serves its purpose. Now, as far as your last point about brick and mortar, I do think that at the end of the day, it's going to be a hybrid environment. The hybrid environment is still relevant. So it's really about humanizing that digital experience or that digital capability. It's not about replacing it. I know there's a bit of a conceptual argument at the moment between being robotic and whether robots going to replace human. Personally, I think that we're still long from there. And at the heart of this conversation, I think as human, we enjoy the interaction. We are social animals, right? We want to meet people face to face. And as I said earlier, especially in the insurance world, you know, to build trust, to build a lasting relationship, you need to take time to get to know each other over coffee, over many discussions, right? And in some area, when you buy, let's say if you're buying clothes or you're buying certain fashion, people want to feel it, want to try it, and to see how it looks like before they purchase, right? So I think for me, personally, I mean, for now, it will be a hybrid arrangement, right? I think that's the best solution, right? Now, if I have, and to quote example, if I met you for 2 or 3 times virtually and follow up with 1 or 2 physical meeting or face-to-face meeting, now for the next meeting, we can easily say, okay, depends on convenience, we can do a virtual or face-to-face. And that is the right formula to go about it, right? Imagine if I'm just going to have 10 virtual meeting with you and not a single physical meeting. I mean, would you commit to a 20 years term life insurance policy? Right? May not be. I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. Okay, just can we just talk a little bit about yourself? I see that you come also from the FMCG industry. So now you are in the banking, you are in insurance. So FMCG industry is totally different from the financial. So how you adapt yourself to be in this different industry?
Sheer hard work, doctor. Hours, as I said, there's no shortcut to it. Just pure commitment and passion to be the best in whatever I do, and work hard, spending the hours. People don't see it, but sometimes I work for 10 hours or 12 hours a day for a long 6 or 7 months, and especially when I'm new on something. And even wake up early in the morning before a big meeting to just make sure that I go through the material. People don't see that, but that is my personal commitment to my professional career. It doesn't really matter my status or title or position in the company. That's how I treat it, and that's how I approach it. That's thing number 1. Number 2 is that's the reason why I find that personally, I can relate to the true values very, very well. I mean, that define me. I'm sharing the true values not because we have this talk today and therefore I needed a so-called some material to discuss, because I believe in it. So I'll bring the attention back to true values, right? I mean, I'm curious. I mean, even as a CEO of Prudential, as I joined the industry, I continue to learn new things. I continue to have an open mind. I continue to acquire new knowledge, and I continue to share what I've seen in the past with my team here in Prudential, right? So for me, that's important, right? And secondly is, I mean, we're talking about being ambitious and being bold as well. Then, hey, willing to try it if you give me a chance. And that defined my career, right? So for me, that's very, very important, because once you have that mindset and you have that right attitude, I think more often than not, I will say, you know, anybody can make it. If I can make it, anybody in this call can make it with that attitude, right? So never say no, right? So when opportunity is given to me when I was much younger, I took on those opportunities. I took on very difficult assignment when nobody wants to do it. I go to country that, you know, people are afraid about the security, and at the same time, you know, I kind of like, yeah, you know, nobody really want to go to this country, and I say it's fine, I'll go, because I was still single then, and I can afford to take the risk. It's calculated risk as well, right? And the kind of experience, the kind of mentor or bosses whom I work for has really, they share their experience with me, they teach me, and I benefited from it. Yeah. So for me, that's very important to start with. And in all the three industries that I'm in, at the end of the day, because I'm a trained marketeer, so I am somebody who know about customer centricity and understand our customer before we do anything or before we offer any solution to the customer. So for me, that holds true in all the three industries, right? That whatever you do, you know who your target audience are, why they do what they do, what's their psyche, what's their needs, and you know, find a solution to meet that, right? So for me, if you're able to achieve that, then I'm very, very confident you'll be successful.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. It's very inspiring. I think we learn a lot, especially fresh. Our students learn a lot from what you have been sharing. Eventually, they will be in the job market. So I just tell them, take note what Mr. Lim has given us here this morning. So I think most of the question has been covered. We don't have any more question. So we almost come to an end of this session. Is there anything else that you think you would like to wrap up, Mr. Lim?
So just want to say thank you, Doctor. Thank you for this opportunity to share the experience with the participants. I hope people who are dialing, you know, you benefit from it. As I said, you know, I wish you all the very best. I'm confident if you really embrace these 5 values, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're going to join an organization or you're going to start your own business, you'll be very successful, and you continue to embrace it and live it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. So with this, really comes to the end of the session here. So before we leave, Mr. Lim, we'd like to have a group photo. So all attendants, please turn on your camera so that we have a group photo. Okay, so that's all.
Thank you so much. All the very best.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lim. Nice to have you have a sharing session. Probably we will look to more like this, especially people from industry. We like to hear what they will say to prepare our students to go into the real world, particularly after all these COVIDs. A lot of things, as you said, change our way of life, our way of work, and so on. So that's all. So I wish thanks all of you and stay safe. Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't
Bye-bye.
forget